In the mid-19th century, new innovations in transportation and the factory system would bring about an increase in production unheard of for any other point in history, known as the Industrial Revolution. While this did create new job opportunities, the work was unsafe, underpaid, and unequally distributed between the working class, the proletariat, and the bourgeoisie, who owned the means of production. As a response, in 1848, Karl Marx's Manifesto of the Communist Party grew in popularity, especially among workers who felt they had been oppressed. In 1917, the October Revolution, led by Vladimir Lenin and his Bolsheviks, overthrew the Tsarist regime in an attempt to seize the means of production back to the proletariat. 5 years later, the Soviet Union was officially formed, creating the first understanding of what communism really was. Also, it's the opposite of this fat kid. Mother 3 has some unkind things to say about capitalism, as if the smoking gun was that it was an allegory for communism all along. I mean, it is. Everything from the bartering system to the happy boxes to working in the mine will tell you that. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. What it really is, well, mostly, is a character study of main antagonist Porky Minch, and how his very existence inadvertently affects everyone around him. Porky is egotistical, lazy, bratty, easily bored, and infinitely consuming. He's kept alive on a kind of eldritch horror bed that lets him do nothing for all of eternity, while it slaughters anyone that gets in the way of his pleasure-seeking. He's got a nearly indestructible giant statue of his own likeness, and builds a robot of his own mother for no other purpose than to deliver him the McDonald's that he loves so much. Everything around him is fun, but aggressively fake. From the flat billboards of various landmarks to the movie theater, where he obsesses over his rival Ness from the original EarthBound, a kid that undoubtedly died hundreds of years ago. But I wouldn't say that Porky is a metaphor for capitalism because it's all so blatant. I mean, New Pork City? You can't get any more on the nose than that. Instead, the capitalism is a metaphor to understand what it is to be Porky. And all of that culminates in the final area of the game, the Empire Porky Building, gaming's most thorough representation of a character through a location. After such an imposing exterior and building itself up as Mother 3's final dungeon, you'd think the interior of the building would match. But surprisingly, you're greeted with calming elevator music and a fairly nice traditional lobby. There's even a hot spring and a shop here in case you need it. But you came here on a mission to get to the 100th floor where Porky is, so you take the elevator, which unfortunately only works up to the 24th floor. When you get there, you meet your old music pals, the DCMC, some of the only people left that haven't fallen for Porky's capitalism, thanks to the power of rock or whatever, man. Duster, one of your party members, is actually their bassist, so they decide to have one last concert to build morale before the final showdown. Of course, Porky sees that and cuts the concert short, telling you that the game is afoot in the most condescending way he can think of. So you do the only thing you can do and ride the elevator up again. Then you emerge in some kind of garden area. Now your serene surroundings seem very nice, until you realize the hippos floating around are actually part rocket launcher and some of the toughest normal encounters in the game. One thing's certain though, and that's that this isn't the 100th floor. Porky mocks you for your idiocy and going through the only path that's afforded to you, and then you get to ride the elevator again. This room isn't it either, which should make it obvious that the devs are probably doing a thing and making a point here. All that's here are some fans of Porky, just to make sure that you remember how great he is. Not much else to do here, so you take the next elevator. The next several floors are like this, each promising the 100th floor, and each becoming more disappointing than the last. There's a mini-dungeon made entirely out of bathrooms, mocking you for taking so long, and killing you instantly to the ultimate chimera if you react poorly. There's a floor that would have had the final Magipsy that you're trying to meet, except that this one actually betrayed the others to become a quirky mini-boss, and is now dead. Sucks. There's a construction site on a totally unfinished floor, because Porky couldn't be bothered to follow the laws of physics and provide support for the floors above. All followed with more mocking. All followed with more excruciating elevator rides. The last of these is the obligatory Evil Laboratory. The last place you get a bunch of encounters, and also where all those cyborg critters that you've been seeing all game were made. Finally, we're getting somewhere! The game's revealing its seedy underbelly, all the jokes culminating into the true devastation to the world Porky spreads. One more dramatic staircase and... Oh, for crying out loud, who's this guy now? Well, he's the host, and as he says, he's here to determine if you're ready to meet Porky or not. He does this through a series of 3 minigames against Porky's robots. And if you didn't look like an idiot before, you absolutely will now. They're all extremely easy, but as the host explains, Porky just loves the word win. So what you actually have to do is lose these horribly easy minigames just to inflate Porky's ego even more than it already is, without throwing the match so hard that it seems fake. I mean, it looks really fake anyway, but that's no match for Porky's powers of lying to himself. One more staircase and... Wait, is that...
Finally, a boss fight.
The natural killer cyborg has the highest stats in the game you've seen so far, and can wreck you if you're not prepared, especially with its powerful end-of-the-century beam, hitting the entire party. More than anything though, the NK Cyborg gets you pumped for what lies ahead. If this is the mini-boss, just imagine what Porky's got in store for you. The music's oddly sweet in this long hallway though, and it uses the nice tile set back from the first floor of the building, seeming more nostalgic than dramatic. And then you take this boat ride, filled with memorable things from EarthBound, and then the theme of the entire Mother series as a whole plays. Pollyanna, I believe in you. First and foremost, this scene acts as a capstone to the Mother series. It's happy and it's nostalgic, acting as a sort of reminder of the good times you've had through the games. But by the complete opposite token, the fact that it's here in the Empire Porky Building and right before Porky itself says a lot about Minch's character. Porky could never be friends with Ness. That doesn't mean he didn't try, in his own backwards, warped kind of way. Even now, countless years after Ness has gone, he still wants to rekindle that friendship. But only if he's in absolute control of it. His desires shifted into a full-blown obsession, collecting these objects one by one and preserving them over millennia, just so that he could pretend that he could have the last laugh. Porky, that's what being friends is all about. After fan favorite gag the pencil eraser makes a cameo appearance, the area takes on a flat, overgrown appearance, invoking thoughts of abandoned machinery. You see Porky ask if you can be friends and dote over him. But you aren't friends, you're only pests. So the Porky bot explodes on you. More come, so be prepared for an even tougher fight than the NK Cyborg against a seemingly never-ending barrage of Porky bots. All of their attacks are described as mechanical, driving home just how manufactured all these feelings and all this conflict is. Porky bots keep replacing Porky bots, and even after you clear those out, another shows up just to bring in some cohorts. Then even more show up and it seems hopeless. But who comes in to shine? It's the DCMC, here to Deus Ex Machina your way out of the fight in one flashy burst. Mother's good at having bands defeat impossible killer robots. All of your friends came here, as a matter of fact, gathered to meet your final foe, the great and powerful Grandmaster Porky. And he's kinda underwhelming? He's older than he's ever been, fatter than he's ever been, never gets up from his bed, and spends every other line hacking and wheezing. He views himself as something of a martyr, ending all of humanity, including himself, because he views them as he views himself, inherently selfish. He describes himself as godlike, and asks that you pity him not for his actions, but just because he had to fight through boredom to get where he is. Even in his last moments, he turns the chase to pull the final needle into a kind of game. But not before he cheats by getting a head start and dropping you down an elevator shaft. All that's left are a few more encounters, a few more jokes, and your first real baseball bat before you take on Porky. The bat here is especially important. It's right before the final encounter, and after using normal sticks as weapons all game, you get Ness's genuine article to finish the job. I like to think the bat was left there by Porky intentionally, to acknowledge that after all your trials, you'll do as a surrogate Ness. With bat in hand, you take on Porky and his fearsome spider mech. And he's every bit as underwhelming as he looks. Both NK Cyborg and the Porky bots were tougher fights, either one having more HP and better stats. Porky is also susceptible to status conditions, takes more damage from PSI, and goes down quicker thanks to the power of
Oh, that's a baseball!
In the end, Porky is just really pathetic. He does end the fight on his own terms by entering the absolutely safe capsule, but this is a fate worse than death. The capsule may be absolutely safe from danger, but that includes preventing Porky from ever escaping. Series creator Shigesato Itoi stated that even after the world ends in 5.5 billion years, Porky would still be alive, laughing that he won in the end. And he'd be right, in a sense. And even after all that, Porky isn't the final boss to Mother 3, paradoxically showing just how inconsequential he ultimately is, despite affecting everything. Through the Empire Porky Building and New Pork City around it, we learn what Porky wants, how Porky thinks, and how Porky influences the lives of those around him. Porky does not have any character development through the entire series, but his sheer resistance toward becoming anything other than the childish brat he always was makes him a fascinating character. To him, winning is more important than his own life, and to the lives of everyone around him, to the point where his understanding of friendship becomes simply a desire to control others. If you look at the building as purely a final dungeon, it stinks. Difficulty scales poorly, it's constantly shifting focus, minigames are thrown in for no reason, only a few floors actually have any danger on them, it ends abruptly, but all of it is necessary to explain who Porky really is. As Itoi says, Porky is truly a poem in himself. And that poem, in its own way, shows how to design for character. Spankety, spankety, spankety.